That's Brian's Kaiser Soze.
No, I understand. He's like a master of viral internet media.
He is the master. He's the #1 guy.
He's also the master of hummingbirds.
He knows hummingbirds inside and out.
And I like hummingbirds.
He's a professional video editor. He just makes brilliant little videos.
No, I know, but I'd like to see a big extended Joe Rogan behind the scenes.
Yeah,
Joe Rogan, mayhem.
Most of the interesting stuff we do something with, but a lot of it is, hey, let's go eat. Just like this, not, a lot of it is, oh, who farted? You know what I mean? A lot of it is not that interesting.
All right, Joe, we got 20 minutes left. I am going to try to just sit back, which is hard to do, and shut up.
Come on.
And I want Joe Rogan's view on the world, technology advancing at an accelerated rate. Humans can't evolve psychologically to deal with it.
That's absolutely true.
Okay, well, you get where I'm going then. Talk about that.
That's a fascinating thing. I mean, if you look at, physically how we have developed and evolved, we haven't evolved that much over the last, few thousand years, but technology has just gone through the roof. It's gotten to a crazy place where we have this unbelievable control over our environment, the ability to construct giant buildings and send photos through the air. I mean, it's a very, very heady thing, and I think it would take like an incredibly enlightened society just to deal with what we're capable of right now. Never mind what's coming in the future as this, exponentially increasing technology, the advancement, the innovation. It's all coming at like this incredibly rapid pace. And, physically we're like the same. Emotionally, we're still tribal monkeys, but we have this incredible power now.
And that's why a lot of scientists believe we won't get to a type 1 society, meaning a society that survives and gets off planet, that we're probably going to destroy ourselves.
Well, it's either that or telepathy. Those are the two possibilities. Either people, the idea of telepathy is ridiculous to people. The idea it's like ghosts or Bigfoot or anything nonsense, anything that we don't have hard proof of. You bring it up.
But the studies show it's real.
The studies do show, and it could certainly be real. If you can smell things. The idea that you can you can detect something with your nose that you can't see it.
But when somebody's looking through your window at night.
Sometimes.
I can't tell you how many times I have known somebody's looking at me when I'm walking around on my family ranch.
They say that is the #1 way that they can show that there is some sort of a connection between human beings telepathically is the ability to recognize when someone's staring at you. They've done scientific studies on that, and they've proven beyond a shadow.
Look, 100% of the time when I'm in a restaurant, and I feel somebody staring at me, especially if it's with bad intent, there's some redneck doesn't like me or something, I'll feel it and I'll turn around and they'll be going and they'll go.
Yeah, that's a weird thing, isn't it? It's a weird thing that we can detect that, and I think that is just, look, at one point in time we couldn't communicate. But if you believe in evolution, you have to believe that at one point in time we were monkeys that just grunted and made noises and swung from trees. And then something happened where we went from that to where we are now, where we figured out not just one, but dozens and dozens of systems of communication all over the world where we write little symbols that mean certain things and we can say noises with our mouth and we understand what we're trying to say because of that. I mean, that alone, that incredible ability to communicate, I mean, that's a gigantic...
But birds know 2 days before an earthquake or before a tornado, and dolphins. I mean, I don't even think it's so much as a primitive thing, but something we always had and are developing because our 5 senses are in such a limited spectrum of what the mathematics show that there is dimensionally.
Yeah, I always say that. We've talked about this on the show before. I call it the fart principle. Like the idea that if someone farted and you didn't have a nose and you didn't hear it, you'd have no idea. You'd be sitting in this horrible smell, and right? You'd have no idea. But how do we not know that there are an infinite number of senses that we just don't, we're not capable of detecting all these other things that are around us all the time. Our imagination limits us to thinking that what we know is all that there is, that smell and touch and feel, and then what we see in front of us is all that there is. But it's very possible that our entire existence is just one tiny spot on the radio dial. And that there's an infinite number of radio stations. There's an infinite number of realities around us all the time. We just can't tune into it. That we're just oblivious to what we can't detect.
We're a very thin slice.
Yeah, but what technology may be is a breaking of those barriers. What we might be able to do with like the Large Hadron Collider and all this crazy manipulation of matter, we might be able to figure out a way to break into other dimensions.
And the mathematics shows that stuff 100 years ago developed the A-bomb, equations on a chalkboard. This is a exponential, multi-level, not one jump, but several jumps past that. And they believe scientists that work there are sabotaging it because they've had blow-ups and disasters, and they can't get the thing started. It's not just that it's so giant. They're not just going to be slamming heavy particles into blocks of lead. They're going to be accelerating uranium, plutonium, and other very explosive, unstable isotopes into each other at light speed. And the scientists say, well, it could create a black hole. It could create a strangelet. It could create a quantum particle that sinks to the center of the Earth and begins replicating, and then, boom, the whole planet's gone.
We can't help it. We have this incredible desire to change things. And I think it's much like a caterpillar does not recognize that it's going to become a butterfly. They're not, at least we don't think they are. They're not aware of it. They just do what they have to do. They make their cocoon, and then they go. They change.
I agree with you. All of this technology is a metamorphosis, yes. And the elite believe that, and we covered that in my film, Endgame Blueprint for Global Enslavement, and they openly, I mean, all the top scientists, futurists, government, UN people, they say they want to exterminate 90% of us and allow that 10% to fuse with the man-machine interface and then take off to the stars. Now, whether that's real or not, that's what the elite believe, and they already have life extension technologies they don't want the public to have access to.
It sounds ridiculous, but from where we are, it's not as big of a leap as where we're living or what the era we're living in right now in comparison to people that we know existed, like the Indians or cavemen.
Computers would be magic to them.
Yeah, man. I mean, just the ability to download something off the internet on your iPhone. I mean, that is one of the craziest things that's ever existed. The Google search, the ability to take your phone, Google something, find out information on a topic instantaneously. They didn't even have that on Star Trek. I mean, that is such a gigantic, monumental leap of access to information.
And when Magellan, 600 years ago, or 400 years ago, circumnavigated the entire world, they didn't even know what was out there.
Right, yeah, they just took chances.
He didn't make it back. Almost everyone died when the ship came back to Portugal. It was rotting and falling apart, and only a few guys were alive.
Nuts.
But imagine, they had no idea. He said, I think it's round, and I'm going around it.
Yeah, there was rats on board with them. They were all getting scurvy because nobody had vitamin C. I mean, those early traveler dudes were nuts. Well, the really nutty idea is the idea of guys like Graham Hancock, guys who believe that those early traveler dudes were just this generation's version of that, and that there's been many, many thousands of years of civilization that we don't even know about because there was a
lot of evidence does show that it gets built up and then destroyed.
I mean, look, we know that there's hundreds of thousands of near-Earth objects between Mars and Jupiter that could just crush this Earth. You know, we know it's happened.
Look at Saturn and Shoemaker-Levy comets.
Yeah. I mean, look at that, and also look at what we know has happened on this planet that comes from this planet, like Yellowstone. Like, they've just figured out, like, within the last decade that Yellowstone is this gigantic caldera volcano that's 600 kilometers across. And every time it's like a continent killer. It blows every 600,000 to 800,000 years, and it kills everything on the continent. And it happened 600,000 years ago.
And the scientist, I've had top volcanologists on. The government admits that's true. And the public has a built-in denial switch where I get emails saying, you're a liar. Yellowstone is not a caldera.
Well, it's like a gigantic game of musical chairs. It's like we hope that we are not going to be here when the music stops. You know, that's what we hope, that while our life is here and while our family's life is here and our grandchildren, everything's going to be okay. I think that life on Earth is very much like an anthill in a field. You know, the ants in that anthill, they have known nothing other than that anthill. They've only been alive for a couple of weeks. As long as they've been alive, that anthill's been there. And that anthill sustains them all, and they think this is just how it always is. And then some little kid walks by, sees that anthill, and stomps on it one day, just out of the blue. And everything changes forever. And the ants never saw it coming. They never knew it was going to happen. They would have, if they had consciousness, they never would have imagined it. Well, there's so many things that can happen to stomp our anthill. There's meteors, there's earthquakes, there's caldera volcanoes, the gigantic super volcano that is Yellowstone Park. I mean,
did you know Germany has a super caldera? They're all over the planet.
I'm sure. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if you look at mountains, I mean, where did those mountains come from? They came from activity. You know, they raise up, and it just takes a long-ass time. And we're only here on this planet for a blip.
And by the way, until the 90s, when Saturn got hit by that comet that broke in all those pieces, scientists argued and said, no, only every billion years do we get hit by a big object. Now, because of the satellites and everything, they know we get hit every couple hundred years by gigantic objects.
Yeah.
And Instead, the government's worried about spying on the citizens and controlling us instead of dealing with all these objects.
I don't know what they can do, man. I don't know what they can do. I think the idea of monitoring the entire 360 degrees of Earth's sky is virtually impossible.
If they turned the satellites around and started trying, they could.
You think so?
Yeah, I've seen the studies on it.
Well, then what do you do when one's coming? You got some 5-mile wide hunk of metal that's heading towards the Earth. What do you do?
You put weapon systems in space, but then you don't want there are treaties against that because whoever has weapon systems can turn them back towards Earth.
Oh, it's also...
Don't worry, Joe. The weapon systems are there.
Oh, I'm sure they are. I mean, you know, I've read all that stuff about the Star Wars scientists, how many different scientists turned out missing or dead, and some strange, you know...
Bob Bowman's in the hospital right now. He's actually in Fall of the Republic. He was the head of Star Wars, and he won't talk about it when I talk to him in private, but he said, I'll tell you what's declassified, because NSA spokesman and Space Command spokesman have let some of it out. When he was there in the late 70s, they announced it in the 80s, it was around the 70s, they had an entire fleet of unmanned aircraft up there, Black Manas, space planes, but they don't use nuclear weapons. They use meteor guns, and they drop solid DU sabos into orbit that accelerate to 30,000 miles an hour, and they can kill people 5 miles under the ground. And it's a global decapitation weapon where they could wipe out the whole leadership of the world in a matter of minutes.
Wow. And that's all real stuff?
That's ultra top secret, the stuff that's leaked, yeah.
Meteor guns? That sounds like an episode of Scooby-Doo.
Well, no. I mean, it doesn't. It has a rocket booster on the back of, say, a 100-pound sabot.
What's a sabot?
That's, say, where you take a .223 round and shoot it out of a .50 caliber round, so it has even more acceleration power. And it's a sabot because it's got a rocket booster on it, so it would speed up to 20,000 miles an hour. Instead, 30, 35, 40,000 miles an hour. The space planes are already going...
That is like the speed of meteors, right? They hit 45,000 miles.
And that's why it's called a meteor gun, because...
Wow.
Because when these birds are about to attack, they accelerate, coming in at an angle on the atmosphere to accelerate, so there's already a greater acceleration than a meteor would normally have. Then they fire with a high-powered rocket booster a solid DU round, which with its kinetic energy when it hits has the power of a medium-yield nuclear weapon.
God damn. I believe it. You know, I mean, I believe that it's possible. I believe if they're willing to blow up Hiroshima and Nagasaki the way they did, why wouldn't they come up with something like that? You know.
Well, believe me, the NSA will be watching this later. Joe, what do you want to? You want to say hi to him?
I want to say I'm a true patriot. I pay my taxes. Leave me alone, please. What are you going to say? You know, I mean, the real problem is that we are moving in a certain direction, and we've been moving in this direction for a long time in this society, and in virtually every society that's ever existed. Every society that has incredible power eventually winds up going into corruption and falling apart. Every empire collapses. And it's because of corruption.
Exactly. But this scientific dictatorship admits in their public documents that they've studied all of that, and they've built a scientific dictatorship so people can't get out of it. Joe, I have hundreds. I always, you know, we joke about documents, but I have hundreds of documents, textbooks, government books, and reports, UN documents, Pentagon documents. This was written by the White House science czar, John P. Holdren, and it was written by one of Bush's advisors, Bush Sr., Paul R. Ehrlich. This calls for putting sterilants in the water to sterilize people, the vaccines, poisoning us, world population reductions of 80%. It is real, and a lot of people can rationalize and say, yeah, there are too many people, instead of understanding, wait, I'm under attack too. They are attacking us, and this guy recently declassified chemtrails, and it made almost no news, and said, yeah, we've been spraying you with barium salts and aluminum dioxide. What do you say to that?
What is the chemtrails? What's the purpose of the chemtrails? Is it weather control experiments?
Yes. He says geoengineering or terraforming to save us from global warming.
There's certainly a difference in the way the clouds look. You know, if you look at some clouds that are way up high, or rather, you know, some trails from jets, it's like they dissipate. They're in the air like they always have been, and then as the plane is moving, you can actually see them dissipate. But then you have these other ones that, like, they linger and they spread out and they literally become clouds. In L.A., they're everywhere. You know, I don't know what that is. I honestly, I have not looked into it.
Well, the incredible thing is scientists that were outside the government did test it, did look at it. They said it's barium salts.
How did they test it? They went up in the air and scooped it up?
Yes, they used aircraft and also got ground samples. And they said, this is barium salts, aluminum dioxide, weather modification, nuclei. They declassified some of it 5 years ago. I got Ben Livingston, the father of weather weapons, on. Then, 8 months ago, Poldrin, the White House science czar, gives a press conference and says, we've been studying it, and it's aluminum dioxide, barium salts. We're doing it to save you. And it turns out a guy got a Nobel Prize in '92 for developing it. But the point is, there's a giant weather modification program going on. They finally admit it, and it's no big deal.
That's pretty crazy.
Joe, in the last 5 minutes or so we have in this special transmission, I want to thank you for coming in. I know you're a guy that loves freedom and is against...
Who doesn't? Who hates freedom?
The globalists hate freedom.
No one's sitting around going, man, I hate freedom. Maybe prisoners that get institutionalized.
Well, the establishment doesn't like freedom.
They hate freedom.
They want to condition people, brainwash them, control them. Let's spend some time here on some lighter notes.
Okay.
Is Brock Lesnar ever going to fight Fedor?
Well, Brock Lesnar right now has mononucleosis. Brock Lesnar has not been able to train, and they've postponed his fight. He was supposed to be fighting Shane Carwin, and that was in November, and they had to postpone it to January. Now there's talk that they may have to postpone it even further if he can't train, because he's been really sick. He hasn't been able to train. And then Lesnar, or Shane Carwin, rather, had H1N1. He lost like 20 pounds due to the flu. So it's, Brock's in a bad situation right now. There's a bunch of guys that have mono. I've heard it. My friend is one of the members of Jeremy Horn's gym. Jeremy Horn's a pretty famous MMA fighter, and at least 2 guys from his gym came down with mono. So
why?
It's spreading. I think mono is it's an infectious disease, right? You can transmit it from person to person. And these guys, when you're training, you're doing jiu-jitsu and wrestling with each other, that's a lot of sweating on each other, and you get each other's bugs. That's why you never want to do jiu-jitsu with a guy who's got a cold, because you're going to get his cold. You sweat on each other. I mean, it's kind of gross when you think about it.
I hear you're a pretty good jiu-jitsu guy.
I'm pretty good. I'm decent. For guys who aren't good, I'm good.
Wasn't there some talk about you and fighting some movie star?
Yeah, it was Wesley Snipes. Yeah. It was his idea, but he changed his mind. But I was training for it. I just thought, he doesn't know jiu-jitsu. If you don't know jiu-jitsu and someone grabs a hold of you, it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to just ad-lib your way out of this? I'm going to choke you. You don't know what you're doing. Jiu-jitsu is like a long process. It takes a long time to learn. And someone who really doesn't understand it, he has no knowledge of it at all. If you watch the early UFCs, you see how that goes. Royce Gracie gets on top of you and chokes you out. That's what happens. It's a very complex martial art. If you don't understand it, or at least have some defense, you're in a lot of trouble.
So it's more like chess versus...
Yeah. It's technique. It's technique and understanding of the positions. And most people just don't know what to do, and your natural instincts will betray you every time. If you don't know jiu-jitsu and someone does, and you roll with them, every single time your natural instincts give you up. You don't realize that you're making mistakes. You don't know what you're defending against. You don't know what's coming. So you don't know how to put yourself in the right position, so you give up a position. And if you give up a position with a guy who knows jiu-jitsu, he's going to tap you out. It's just how it goes. It's a helpless feeling. When I first learned jiu-jitsu, starting out as like a white belt, I remember just getting dominated by guys where they would just crush you. They would just grab you, get on top of you, and choke you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's a horribly helpless feeling. Ari is getting pretty good now. Ari's a blue belt. And are you a blue belt yet? No? But he's tapped some people. You've tapped some people, right? He's been doing it for a couple of years. But when Ari started out, not only was Ari, not doing any sports, he wasn't doing anything. He was smoking cigarettes, and he was just... You play basketball every now and then? How often? Once or twice a week, folks. Basketball. Okay, so he played a little basketball. But, he went from no martial arts experience whatsoever to actually tapping guys out. Hung in there. I'm proud of him.
So it's really good for people for self-defense.
Yes, it's great for self-defense, and it's also great for exercise because it's really fun. It's interesting. What's that?
If you're looking to rape.
Yeah, if you're looking to get good at rape, it's the best. Boy or girl, whatever you're trying to do. It's a fascinating sport. It's a fascinating martial art because it's a whole series of movements, and it's never ending. Like me and a buddy of mine were just drilling a new move the other day, and we're talking about it. He's a brown belt. I'm a brown belt too, and he's like, it never ends. There's always a new move. There's a new sweep, and this new sweep that we were learning the other day is just this revolutionary new sweep. And everybody's like, man, how did I not see this before? But it's always been there. It's just the movements of people. When you have unlimited mobility with your body. You can move, especially if you're really flexible. You move your body in a certain way, and then you got 2 arms to attack, 2 legs to attack, and the neck. And there's so many different possibilities, so many different ways to attack someone. It's really like a kinetic game of chess. It really is.
Wow, that is, and a lot of people. A lot of people aren't looking for a fight, so they never train in any type of martial art.
But it's stupid.
But everybody should get their girls, their boys. Yes. Everybody should be trained to defend yourself.
Yes, it's always important to be the one who makes the decision whether or not you get hurt. You know, if some guy can just throttle you and you don't know how to defend yourself, you're in a terrible situation. You don't know how to defend yourself. You know, you could run into some nut, and some nut decides to beat you up. I mean, I've seen it happen before where guys just they're crying and they're begging and the guy's kicking them when they're down. Have you ever seen a situation like that? It's
yeah.
Horrible to watch a guy have his manhood taken away by someone just because he doesn't know how to defend himself. You know, and it's most of the time you're never going to run into that situation. Most of the time, if you hang out in good circles, you're going to live your life and not have to worry about it. But you might. You know, you might.
I don't know, man.
Should have zagged.
I grew up in Dallas. I don't know if it's still like that up there, but there are a lot of really bad people that like to get in fights.
There's a lot of people all over the country that are angry, man. There's people that have terrible jobs, and terrible relationships, and terrible upbringings, and they want to kick your ass. They don't care. They want to kick your ass, you know, and you got to be aware of those.
No, I was like a nice little kid when I was like 10, 11, 12, and kids that were like 5, 6 years older would beat me up.
Yeah,
and that ended up making me a little bit stronger. But it would have been great if somebody would have put me in something like jiu-jitsu way back then.
Yeah. Because
I wouldn't have learned how to just have knockdown dragouts with people.
You could still enjoy it now. You know, it's a great. How old are you now?
35.
35. Look, you still got time, man. You can train. You could learn. You can get good at it. And it's a fun thing to do for exercise. Because, you know, getting to the gym, just get on the elliptical machine and lifting weights, it can get pretty tedious.
No, it does.
But jiu-jitsu is like always fun to do. You know, you're playing a game. And the game, it's like literally like my friend Eddie, who teaches me, describes it as like a video game.
Eddie Bravo.
Yeah, Eddie Bravo, who's probably one of the most innovative, not the most innovative jiu-jitsu instructor ever. Because he smokes pot. He smokes pot and comes up with all these crazy moves. And he describes it as like you're playing a video game, and the video game is that you're trying to kill somebody. I mean, it really is like that. It's like it's a real live game, and the game is trying to checkmate somebody.
Amazing. In closing, Joe. JoeRogan.net. You've recently been shooting a movie.
Yeah, I shot a movie called The Zookeeper with Kevin James. It was a fun movie. It's like a kid's movie. I play a real douchebag. It's fun. I play his enemy.
You play the bad guy?
Yeah, it was fun. It was a real asshole. It was fun to play. It was fun. You know, it was an interesting thing. I haven't done a movie in a long time, and never a real one like this one. All the movies I've done 2 movies, and they were both crap. And you know, doing TV shows like.
You got to remember to turn my phone off on air.
That's the New World Order calling you.
Hold on 1 second.
We're tired of you.
Hello?
Alex. You're talking on the radio, and then you're answering the phone.
You know, I'm sorry. I'm on air right now. Let me call you back as soon as I'm off. All right. Thank you. Sorry.
Who's that?
Press TV in Tehran. One of me.
Oh, that's hilarious.
The Iranians are gone.
They must love you. You're all anti-U.S. government. See, we told you. We have the information. We have the documents. They must love you over there, right? What do you think?
I do Russian TV, British, Japanese, everything.
What's going to happen with us in Iran and Pakistan?
The word is they're planning to hit Iran in 2 years unless they do what they're told by the globalists. They're not building nukes. The Russians have built it. It's non-weapon. The U.S. gave Pakistan nukes to menace India and Pakistan and China. So it's all a global geopolitical chess game that it's the school of Zbigniew Brzezinski. He's kind of the Eddie Bravo of geopolitics. And
so what is going on with North Korea?
It's like a chess game with like 50 levels, and they're all just... North Korea was given the nukes by Rumsfeld as the head of ABB in 1996 so they could destabilize that and have a reason to attack them. And, of course, the dictators are always like, yes, give me. But it's like in the old Western, a Bill Hicks line.
Right.
Where the guy throws...
that movie? The movie that he talked about?
It's in a bunch of movies.
Sheen? Is that it?
I don't know, but I've seen it like in other movies. You see it in that one Clint Eastwood, which is based on a true story.
Jack Palance, right? That was the
pick up the gun, kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they throw the gun down to get him to pick it up.
Yeah.
But there's also that Clint Eastwood movie where he goes to the mining town and they kill the guy's dad, and then they throw the gun down in front of the kid and say, pick it up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually happened in some real Western stories. Is why you see it in so many movies. Right. But that's it. They're just giving him a gun.
Right. Crazy.
Tell me about Cap City Comedy Club.
It's a fun place. I filmed my very first DVD there back in 1999, the one that you and me wore the George Bush mask and danced around the Capitol. Remember that?
People are so silly, though. They think that's footage of a secret satanic ritual.
We had feather boas on. I had a feather boa.
No, we're out there at the Capitol. We're running around acting like we're the devil in Bush, and then they think we're serious. Hey, finishing up, how crazy is it that there's all these websites that really believe I'm Bill Hicks?
That's amazing.
And they're doing voice analysis and everything else?
Well, that just goes to show you. People will believe almost anything. There's a lot of dopes out there. That's why, they don't want people organized. Like we were talking about Waco earlier. The reason why they don't want that is not just that they don't want people to be able to protect themselves from the government. There's probably a little bit of that. But there's also, they don't want warlords. They don't want people to do like what's going on in Afghanistan, to be able to start their own cults and arm everybody and control these groups of people, because it's not hard to control people. We have a defect in our operating system, and you can exploit that defect with confidence and with a clear, a clear doctrine of what's supposed to go down and what's supposed to happen. And you could say that you're getting this information from aliens or higher power, or what Joseph Smith said, you got it from golden tablets that had the lost work of Jesus on it. It's not hard to do. And you could start your own group.
Well, that's because we're very similar to dogs. That's why dogs live with us, is they follow the alpha.
Yeah, exactly.
And they follow confidence and leadership. But again, the biggest cult is the globalist, and they happen to be a eugenics death cult. So what I'm saying is, I'd rather have a few Jim Joneses or people running around.
I don't know about that.
Well, also he was tied into CIA. But the point is,
there's got to be a middle ground. There's got to be, let people have their guns to defend themselves.
That's what's so good about Ron Paul. He is not a cult leader.
Yes.
He is a doctor. He's a mainline guy. And we need to follow him instead of the cult of Republicans and Democrats.
I agree 100%. And when he talks about these vaccinations, he says it's absolutely ridiculous. And he talks about how the regular flu is so much more deadly and killed so many more people per year, than this swine flu. And everybody's jumping all over this. And they're making a big deal out of it.
Well, and again, it's common sense that this is killing about 1/5 in the flu season, what the regular flu does.
How much money do they make from?
They've made $7 billion. A week ago, the Boston Globe reported that in the last week and a half, 5 drug makers had made $7 billion extra in a week and a half.
God damn. All from vaccinations.
$7 billion extra.
That is incredible. That's incredible. And does this get reported in mainstream news? Does anybody look at it as a possible angle?
A lot of people are pointing it out, and it is starting to come out in mass media. World technology advancing at an accelerated rate. Humans can't, evolve psychologically to deal with it.
That's absolutely true.
Okay, well, you get where I'm going then. Talk about that.
That's a fascinating thing. I mean, if you look at, physically how we have developed and evolved, we haven't evolved that much over the last, few thousand years, but technology has just gone through the roof. It's gotten to a crazy place where we have this unbelievable control over our environment, the ability to construct giant buildings and send photos through the air. I mean, it's a very, very heady thing. And I think it would take like an incredibly enlightened society just to deal with what we're capable of right now. Never mind what's coming in the future as this, exponentially increasing technology, the advancement, the innovation. It's all coming at like this incredibly rapid pace. And, physically we're like the same. Emotionally, we're still tribal monkeys, but we have this incredible power now.
And that's why a lot of scientists believe we won't get to a type 1 society, meaning a society that survives and gets off planet, that we're probably going to destroy ourselves.
Well, it's either that or telepathy. Those are the two possibilities. Either people, the idea of telepathy is ridiculous to people. The idea it's like ghosts or Bigfoot or anything nonsense, anything that we don't have hard proof of. You bring it up.
But the studies show it's real.
The studies do show, and it could certainly be real. If you can smell things. The idea that you can you can detect something with your nose that you can't see it.
But when somebody's looking through your window at night.
Sometimes.
I can't tell you how many times I have known somebody's looking at me when I'm walking around on my family ranch.
They say that is the number one way that they can show that there is some sort of a connection between human beings telepathically is the ability to recognize when someone's staring at you. They've done scientific studies on that, and they've proven beyond a shadow.
Look, 100% of the time when I'm in a restaurant, and I feel somebody staring at me, especially if it's with bad intent, there's some redneck doesn't like me or something, I'll feel it and I'll turn around and they'll be going and they'll go.
Yeah, that's a weird thing, isn't it? It's a weird thing that we can detect that. You know, and I think that is just, look, at one point in time, we couldn't communicate. But if you believe in evolution, you have to believe that at one point in time, we were monkeys that just grunted and made noises and swung from trees. And then something happened where we went from that to where we are now, where we figured out not just one, but dozens and dozens of systems of communication all over the world, where we write little symbols that mean certain things, and we can say. That's Brian's Kaiser Soze.
No, I understand. He's like a master of viral internet media.
He is the master. He's the #1 guy.
He's also the master of hummingbirds.
He knows hummingbirds inside and out.
And I like hummingbirds.
He's a professional video editor. He just makes brilliant little videos.
No, I know, but I'd like to see a big extended Joe Rogan behind the scenes.
Yeah, but
Joe Rogan, mayhem.
Most of the interesting stuff we do something with, but a lot of it is, hey, let's go eat. Just like this stuff, you know. A lot of it is, oh, who farted? You know what I mean? A lot of it is not that interesting.
All right, Joe, we got 20 minutes left. I am going to try to just sit back, which is hard to do, and shut up.
Come on,
and I want Joe Rogan's view on the world.